Magnesium. What is it? What can it do for you? And why are all of the cool kids taking it? Okay, magnesium is a mineral. It's an essential mineral, meaning that our bodies do not produce it. We have to get it through our diet. And if you don't get it through your food, you might have to get it through supplements. Now, the cool thing about magnesium is it's a cofactor in more than 300 types of enzymes. So, what is an enzyme, you ask? An enzyme is basically a chemical reaction in your body that gets different things done. One example of an enzyme is amylase. It's in your saliva and it breaks down starches into carbohydrates. Now, magnesium isn't a big player in that, but it is in something called myosin ATPase. And what this does is it allows your muscles to contract. So without the magnesium being a part of that enzyme, your muscles wouldn't contract. And if you think about it, basically everything you do, from getting out of a chair to going to the gym and doing a dumbbell curl, you need muscle contractions every day. Now you think about that, and magnesium sounds pretty important, but again, it's a cofactor in more than 300. Some studies think up to 600 different enzymes. And there's studies showing that about half of Americans may be insufficient in magnesium. So not deficient, there is that, but insufficient, not enough magnesium. And some signs and symptoms of insufficient amounts of magnesium include poor sleep, fatigue, muscle cramps, and twitches. Sometimes that's why you may be seeing or feeling your eyelid twitch. It's because you may be low on magnesium. Let me look at my notes here. Oh, headaches and migraines. We're going to touch on that a little later, but these are some things you may notice if your magnesium levels are a bit low. Now, the three general areas of benefits I want to talk about today are the mood benefits, the sleep benefits, and the cardiovascular benefits of magnesium. Okay, on to the mood boosting effects of magnesium. Magnesium is a neurotransmitter regulator. So if you are someone who finds that you experience anxiety, more stress than the average person, depression, if your sleep is 7 types of jacked up, if you feel like you just can't think clearly, like you have perpetual brain fog, and what's the other one? Emotional regulation, that's another one. If you just feel like you're too often hangry and you need a Snickers bar more than the average person, you may have insufficient levels of magnesium, and supplementing with magnesium can help treat these signs or symptoms. Now, this is not medical advice, so always talk to your doctor about everything in this video, past and future videos that I make. This is just for informational purposes. On to the second category of benefits, and this is in regards to headaches and migraines. And in my career as a registered nurse, I've met many female patients who suffer from migraines, and the number one prescription that I've seen prescribed is called sumatriptan. Now, sumatriptan is pretty effective, but there are some caveats to it. One, if your insurance company does not cover the cost of it, you're paying out of pocket, and that can get expensive. The other is the potential side effects. Some of those side effects are dizziness, nausea, drowsiness, fatigue. And there's another big one. It's a group of symptoms. It's tightness in the chest, neck, and jaw. And the interesting thing about that last group of symptoms is that's also fairly common in people who experience a heart attack. So I'm not saying that sumatriptan causes heart attack, but it can give confusing signals to the people who are trying to diagnose or treat you if you were to show up to the emergency room or something like that. Okay, and there's also a higher incidence of something called coronary artery vasopression. And that's just a fancy way of saying the blood vessels to the heart narrow and reduce blood flow. And that may be the reason why somebody would experience the tightness in the chest, neck, and jaw. Now we're on to the third category of benefits, which is cardiovascular health. And because cardiovascular health is such a common thing for Americans, it's definitely worth discussing. Now, as I mentioned before, magnesium is really important when it comes to muscle contractions. And your heart is a muscle that contracts all the time, even when you're asleep. I think we all know this. So if your magnesium levels are off, you may experience abnormal heart rates or arrhythmias. Now, high blood pressure, which is something a lot of people deal with, is correlated with low levels of magnesium. Magnesium is actually a vasodilator. So what that does is it widens the blood vessels. And if we think about plumbing, if we want to force a bunch of fluid through a pipe and that pipe is narrow, it's going to have a harder time going through that pipe, and the pressure, the internal pressure of the pipe that's pushing on the outward walls of the pipe is going to be higher than if we were to use a wider pipe. And magnesium helps in vasodilating, essentially giving you a wider pipe to lower the blood pressure. And the third cardiovascular benefit is magnesium is an antagonist to calcium. And why is that important? Well, if you ever heard the term atherosclerosis, that's hardening of the arteries. Part of the reason why that happens when arteries become hardened and less pliable, less flexible, is due to a buildup of calcium. And because magnesium is a counterbalance to calcium, it can help keep the calcium levels down so that your arteries do not harden and are not less flexible. They're more flexible. That's a good thing. Dietary sources of magnesium. They're going to be most prevalent in leafy green vegetables and nuts. So go look that up and go eat some of that. Now, if you don't get it in your diet, you can take it in supplement form. And most studies show that, well, first, the daily recommendation is anywhere from 310 to 420 milligrams per day. But most studies that have done research use supplements of 200 to 400 milligrams a day. Now, be careful not to exceed those upper levels, because if you do, you may experience abdominal cramping, nausea, and diarrhea. There are many supplemental forms of magnesium, but I would generally recommend only taking 2 forms. The reason is all the other forms are not so easy on the stomach, and you may get GI symptoms, the same symptoms I mentioned earlier. So the research seems to point to magnesium glycinate with a G as one of the most bioavailable forms of magnesium and one of the most tolerable for your GI system. So you're not likely to get the abdominal cramps, diarrhea, and nausea with magnesium glycinate. I take it almost every day, never had a problem. The other recommended form of magnesium is magnesium threonate with a T. And this one is also gentle on the stomach, not as much as glycinate. However, where this one shines is in the cognitive benefits, and it crosses the blood-brain barrier much easier than all the other forms. So if you're taking magnesium more for mental processing, cognition, whatever you want to call it, this may be the better form to take. Where are all the cool kids getting their magnesium? Well, you could get it at Amazon, that's obvious, or any supplement store. And for about $15 to $20, you might get about 180 capsules of 400 milligrams. And you could get a lower dose, 200 milligrams too. But that's roughly a 6-month supply for all those benefits for $20. Amazing. The last thing I'm going to cover is a stack. We love stacks here. And a stack is when you combine a supplement so that you can have amplified benefits or multiple benefits. And a lot of people, and myself, take this particular stack. It's magnesium and L-theanine. You can also add apigen in there. I don't, but you can. And I will do a deep dive on this stack in the future. But the short of the long is you will sleep faster, you will fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, have more restful sleep, and wake up less throughout the night. It may also give you more vivid dreams. That is magnesium, and I will catch you on the next one.